How to use secure SSH. Do you use strong passwords, certificate authentication? Those are a really good option, but there are additional ways that you can secure SSH. This is B from Tay Talk Tech, and today I'm going to show you how to secure SSH, so stick with me. I have a favor to ask. If you like this type of video and want to see more content like it, make sure you are subscribed and hit the bell button for notifications. Also, don't forget to give this video a like if you like it. Let me know what you liked, didn't like, or if you have any comments, questions, concerns, or emotional opera sound in the comment section below. And lastly, make sure you stick around all the way to the end to get the most out of this video. Let's do this thing. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about a couple of things first. So, now, I briefly mentioned there in the introduction, certificate authentication. It's great. It can make your life a whole lot easier. I've actually already done a video on that, so I'm not going to say much here. Go check out that video if you want to know more about certificate authentication when it comes to SSH. But I did want to go ahead and actually show it to you in action, because some of you may already be familiar with it, but just haven't seen its application to SSH. So really, that involves just, boom. No password, it's doing a certificate. So again, check out that video if you want to know more about certificates with SSH. Now, the other non-configuration file type thing that I want to briefly cover here is going to be disabling SSH completely. So that would involve sudo disable, and then we're going to do we're going to do sudo systemctl disable tech now, and then we're going to do SSH. Oops, hold on. Let's not do that there. Let's not actually. Hold on. We're not going to check because if I do that, I'm going to get separated. Okay, we're going to do sudo systemctl disable tech now SSH. And it's going to be okay here because we are doing it on a console connection, so it's not going to disconnect me from here, which is why I'm actually using this connection. All right, perfect. So now if we do a sudo, actually we don't need a sudo for the system, ctl status SSH, we can see here that it is indeed inactive and it's also been disabled. So we know that it's disabled. Now let's go ahead and restart it. What we're going to do is we're actually going to do the same command, and then we're going to go ahead and do enable. And that's going to go ahead and start it. So let's just go back and do the status. Bada boom, bada bang. There we are. We've got the active status there, and we've also got it enabled here where it previously said disabled. So easy enough, or enough, since it starts with an E. Let's go ahead and clear this out. All right, so now let's go ahead and move on to the SSH configuration file. So you may not be familiar with the SSH configuration file, and there's a configuration file, and there's also a kind of configuration directory is how I like to think of this other directory that's involved with SSH configuration. So let's go ahead and talk about that. Now the SSH configuration file is going to be, all right, let's do sudo vim etc ssh, and it's going to be sshd _config. This is going to be the actual configuration file. So let's go in here. And this is where you're going to be making any configurations. Now, one of the things I can tell you is that you will see here is that you will see that there's already stuff that's been set up and other things that have been hashtagged out. Those you can update this file in one of two ways. You can come up here to these top parts and unhashtag these things and make your configuration changes that way. But what I like to do is I like to do it like this, where we put it at the end, so I can go ahead and make notes about the specific reason that I'm doing that. Like here I said hashtag SSH video, because that hashtag there is going to keep it from actually showing up inside of the file. And then I made a note there, it's for video, and then I made my configuration changes below that. That's the way that I like to do it, but whatever is going to work best for you. I just want to let you know that you have those two different those options. Now, one of the other things you can do to get more information, one of the things you can do to get more information on SSH and the configuration file for SSH is going to be man sshd _config. Oops, I spelled that wrong. There we go. And this will go ahead and give you more information on the on the configuration file and everything, like what everything means and all the good stuff. So you can see that here. It's super helpful, and that's the great thing about Linux is it's got all these built-in man pages that can, save your life in certain situations. So let's go ahead and quit out of here. Let's clear this out. We're gonna do one of the things that you're gonna want to do prior to making any configuration file changes. You're gonna want to back that file up. So then what we're gonna do is we're just gonna do copy, and we're gonna do etc SSH sshd underscore config, and then we're gonna go ahead and do that to sshd underscore config dot back. And you don't have to put the dot back on there. It's not going to change the file type, but I like to put that on there just so I know that that is indeed the backupable file. And I'm also just saving it in my home directory because I'm not. This is a virtual machine, so I can knock it out anytime that I want with when it comes to any configuration issues. So I'm not worried about that. So let's go ahead and do that. You'll do that with the cp command. It'll just copy the location and then into whatever file or location that you want yourself, and we can see that here. We got the sshd config.back file is listed here. So pretty awesome stuff. Now, one of the things that you'll want to make sure that you do is after making any configuration file changes, you're going to want to go ahead and restart the SSH daemon. So it'll be sudo systemctl restart SSH, or if you're on Fedora or Red Hat, you're going to use sshd. All right, so let's go ahead and do that here because I'm on a Ubuntu server. There we go. And it has indeed been restarted. Now, I mentioned a configuration directory. Now, there is another directory where we do have additional I don't like calling them, like they are configuration files, but yeah, we'll just refer to them as configuration files just to keep things simple here. sshd underscore config .d. This is actually a directory, so it's one dot and one d different than the actual config file. And in here, you'll notice that we have a file. Let's go ahead and go in there. We're going to need to do a sudo. All right, perfect. And there's only one thing that's in there, and it is currently hashtagged out password authentication. Yes. Now I'm actually going to be doing a troubleshooting video on SSH for this issue because it's something that I ran into and something that even people on Linux for Noobs on Reddit were, they didn't speculate on it. They may have known about it, but it just may not have been the first thing. And I was like, oh, this is the first time I've ever spent an amount of time attempting to configure SSH. So that's why it became an issue. And I was wondering what it was, but make sure you're subscribed so you catch that video when it drops. All right, so we're going to go ahead and table that for now. All right, so let's go ahead and clear this out. All right, so now let's get back into the configuration file. There we go. All right, so there's going to be a few options that you have for changing, making changes to this file that are going to help you make SSH more secure. So the first one that you can do is you can go ahead and use port 2022 to be your port. Now you're going to have to log in a bit differently. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to do an SSH. We're going to do admin user, and then we're going to do @ then we're going to do 192.168.1. I think this one's 34, and let's just do it like that. And we can see there connection was refused on port 22. That's because it is set on port 2222. So let's go ahead and do an update here. Let's put a TAC P on the end and just do 2222. And now we can see that we are good to go here, and you can see it automatically logged in. So I've actually got certificate authentication already set up on this system. So yeah, and it's pretty easy how it's set up. Here is you just do a capital P for port, and then just 2222 is going to be the port number that we use. And you can use any port. Now the next one is going to be permit root login. So let's go ahead and go back over here. Let's exit out of this. We're going to do the same thing, but we're going to do it as root this time around. And I'm pretty sure based on the title, you can tell what this one does. And it's going to prompt you for a password. I'm putting in the right password, and I'm going to put it in all 3 times. So it doesn't give you really any indication in those. And then it says permission denied public key password. But there's really no password issue. It's all based on the fact that we set this up to not allow root to log in, and that's what's happening here. Is we just do permit root login, and this is very common for the syntax for this file. Is you'll do the first word is going to be capitalized, the second word will be capitalized, the third word, and so on will be capitalized. I don't know if there's any that have more than 3 words, but there may be. I haven't used every single option, so keep that in mind. So, all right. So we have another option here that says allow users. Allow users is going to allow us to specify which users that we're going to allow to connect to the SSH server. In this particular case, we are allowing 3 separate users. We're allowing admin user, we're allowing test, and we're allowing test 2. So what this means is that only those three users can connect to the server. So we know that from this one, we know we definitely can't do root. So let's go ahead and try a test. There we go. Who am I? Which is the command that tells you who you are in the system. Test. And we could also do we could do a host name, bunch of server, and then we can do pwd. We're in our home directory. So that is how that one works. You can also do this with groups. But so like with this example here, I'm not going to show this to you just because it's pretty clear what this does. It acts in the same way that the user does, but instead of it being limited by users, it's going to be limited by groups. So if I were to go in here and take out this hashtag and then refresh everything, it would only allow users from the admin user group, and that can be an effective way to limit the access, is to only have like an SSH group, and then only allow the people that are part of the SSH group to be able to log in through SSH. It can be a great way to control access to your system through SSH. So I wanted to share that with you. Now, this one is a little interesting to me because this one is something I had never heard of, and it is permit empty passwords. And I want to show you something here. So I'm going to update this. We're going to do we're going to come over here. We're going to do yes. We're going to come out of here. We're going to do this. We're going to do sudo systemctl. And then we're going to do restart SSH. Perfect. Now let's go ahead and go over here. Let's exit out of here. All right, so we've gone ahead and changed it from allow permit empty passwords, and essentially what permit empty passwords does is it limits services and users that don't have a password from logging in through SSH. This is a very, very important option because you don't want somebody who has access, who takes, who finds out a service username that has root privileges on your system, comes over and is able to sign in because you left this option as yes. You always want this option to be no. I just can't think of really any time when you would actually want to do this in a production. Unless you're literally the only person in your freaking bunker, maybe then. But then you could just use certificates. So, yeah, I just can't think of anything. But let's go back. I digress. Let's come back to what we're talking about here. We're going to do the same test here. I'm sorry, the same login here, but we're going to do test 2. And yeah, it worked, right? See all that? We don't have. I can tell you right now. I'm not going to show. I could show you, but it'd be kind of a pain in the butt. But I don't have a certificate set for this person. So yeah, now let's go ahead and go back. Let's exit out of here. We're going to go back into the configuration file. We're going to change this to no. We're going to get out of here. We're going to restart SSH, and let's try this again. Oh, we don't have a password set, but okay. So what do? Just going to hit enter. And we get the same thing that we got for root. So yeah, you can see how dangerous that can be. Like that is very, very concerning if somebody had that as yes. Don't want that to happen. Hey, if you're messing around, like a site like, I don't know, what's the name of it? One of the, oh my God, try hack me. Maybe that might be one of those things where, it might be able to log in as a service with it, so it's always worth a shot. So, all right, let's go ahead and go back to our configuration file. Now, the next one is a client alive interval. And essentially what this is going to do is it's going to set a timeout interval so that if the person is away from their keyboard, isn't making doing anything with the terminal, then it's going to go ahead and shut it down. I set this one to 600 seconds or 10 minutes. So that is something you may want to. I have a bad habit of doing this and then not and then forgetting to log out of sessions. So I'm just like I'll sit there and I'm like, what the heck? What am I doing here? So on this one especially, I set it for 600 seconds so that after 10 minutes it'll just sign out, and then it'll require somebody to sign in again. Now this next one is password authentication. So I'm gonna go ahead and before I get too ahead of myself here, and I'm sorry that I haven't gone through each of the actual syntax for each of these, but I'm going to backtrack here and do that. So just to kind of for completeness here, permit root login is how you set whether you want to enable or disable root logins. Allow users is how you set which users you want to allow to log in through the SSH server. The allow groups lets you set it to groups. Permit empty passwords is how you set it for empty passwords. Client at alive interval is how you set it for those client alive intervals that I mentioned just a minute ago. And this last one is password authentication, which sets if you can or cannot log in with a password. So let's go ahead and go in here. Let's just do no. Let's go out of here. And now let's try it again. But we're going to go ahead and go over here to, we're going to go to admin user first. We have the certificate set, so we can access there. Good. Let's do that. Now let's do the same thing, but let's go ahead and go to the test user. Oh, okay. It's asking for a password. And let it log in. Oh, you know what? Whoops. Whoopsie doodles. Made a mistake there, and you guys probably already called it out. You're like, dude, what are you doing? You forgot to reset. That's exactly what I forgot to do. Permission denied. Permission denied. Permission denied. So they're not going to be able to log in. So it's only going to allow people with certificate set up. So that is some pretty cool stuff, if I have to say so myself. SSH, it's a great tool. It is just one of those things that when I made the transition from Windows to Linux, that I was just like, wow, I was like, well, I don't understand the usefulness of it. So now that I sit there and I mess with Linux all the time, I'm like, oh wow, this makes my life so much easier. So I'm glad to pass this on to you guys. Now, check out the other videos in my SSH playlist. If you're interested, I've covered quite a bit of topics. If you've already caught up on that series, go ahead and check out this other video instead. Remember, mistakes make you better, so keep on making them. Thank you so much for watching my video, and have the greatest of days.